Welcome back to Speak Up Queen, the podcast where we empower, uplift, and celebrate women who have reclaimed their voices to inspire others. Today, we are thrilled to introduce an inspiring leader, award winning CEO, and all around powerhouse, Kaa Williams. Kaa is a woman of many talents, a relentless gearhead, lover of all things vintage, and a branding expert who specializes in crafting gravitational brands that elevate thought leaders to new heights of influence and income. Not only is she a force in the professional world, but Kaya is also deeply committed to empowering others. She is the founder of The Kitchen, a vibrant platform dedicated to supporting Gen Z and millennial women in business. Whether you're an aspiring founder or climbing the corporate ladder, Kaya's mission is to foster community access and success, the next generation of trailblazers. Get ready to hear her story, soak in her wisdom, and be inspired to step into your own power. Let's give a royal welcome to Kaya Williams to Speak Up, Queen.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Kaya, what was the most challenging limiting belief you had to overcome, and how did breaking free from it reclaim your voice?
Ooh, that is we're starting out with a heavy hitter. That is such a good question. Most challenging limiting belief that I had to overcome. I think for me, it was the idea that there was always more. There was always more that I had to learn. There was always more, more people that I had to meet, more experiences that I had to have before I was ready to, whatever that means, ready to jump into the next thing or the next step. And I am such a voracious learner, honestly. I'm always looking for opportunities where I can kind of be a sponge and soak up information. And so I think that I kind of went the other way almost in a little bit of that like information paralysis of like, okay, I need more, I need more, I need more. And I had somebody tell me one day, they were like, what makes you think that you don't already have enough to get started? And I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, I just ran through the list of things that I still, information I still need. And he was like, yeah, that would all be nice to have. But you're completely ignoring the, 4 or 5 years of experience that you already have that has set you up for this. And I was like, oh, okay, got it. So I think that would be one of them that was the most challenging to overcome was that idea that I always needed more.
Definitely. How do you think that shift impacted the way you show up in the world today?
I think it shifted everything for sure. I think it altered the way that I lead, but it also altered my image of myself because I think it allowed me to get to a place where I could, kind of stand in, oh, okay, I have done the work. One of my team members and close friends is she's such a visionary in her work. And I remember one of the first conversations that we had, she was like, she just offhandedly, like clearly had stood in this belief for so long that she didn't even still realize the weight of it when she said it. But she was like, yeah, I don't believe in imposter syndrome. And I was like, what? Like I've heard people say, especially women say that they have overcome it, say that they are no longer bound by it, but straight up saying that you don't believe in it, I had never heard that before, not from a woman and not so like self-assuredly, right? So I'm like, okay, hold on, hold on, hold on. What do you mean by that? And as we kind of unpack that more, I think that that philosophy is something that she had no idea. This was years ago. She had no idea how that stuck with me. And thankfully I was able to tell her and share that with her a couple weeks ago. But I think that philosophy kind of stuck with me, and I was looking at how else I can apply that to my life. But in looking at, okay, this new thing that I want to do, this new offering, this new vision, I mean, even business aside, like solo traveling, for example, like just, something that I wanted to do in that kind of imposter syndrome creeping in. And it was being able to kind of recenter and say, oh, no, you do actually already have everything you need. So just move, just get started, just go one foot in front of the other, even if you don't necessarily know where you're going. So I think that would be how it kind of shifted the way that I
Mm.
show up in the world.
Can you share when someone's words or actions make you feel small and how you found the strength to rise above it?
Ooh. I think I'm gonna have to channel a little bit of my friend's energy. Her name's Shauna. So I'm gonna channel a little bit of Shauna energy in this answer. And I'm gonna say there have been a lot of times where people have tried to make me feel small. And there are some that I can pull from in which they succeeded, but I don't really want to give those more energy. So I'm gonna highlight. I was at an event with IBM about a month ago, and I work in sports, so I'm very used to being the only woman at the table in the conversation. That has changed a lot, but it's still sports. So there are still situations where, I end up being the only one, and it's fine. Like, I'm totally cool. But in this conversation, I was talking with a friend and then three people or three men that I had just met. Like, we'd all just met at this event. And the conversation kind of gets going, and three of us had already been talking, and then two more come in later on in the conversation. And one of the ones who entered later, as soon as he entered the conversation, like the way that he walked over to the circle was very much like he was trying to command attention and like prove to us that he deserved to be there. And we're like, we don't know what you're trying to prove. There was no competition happening here. But as the subject of the conversation kind of evolved, I said something, and the way that he responded, which it was funny because it wasn't even directed at him, I was talking to somebody on the completely other side, but irrelevant. The way that he responded was very much just kind of dismissive. And I was like, oh, I haven't dealt with one like this in a while. This is going to be fun. So it was clear, like I said, from the way that he walked up to the circle, he walks up right next to me in this conversation, but intentionally turns his body to face this is a circle, but he intentionally turns his body to face the opposite direction of me, even though he joined the circle right next to me. And so it's just little things like that where I'm like, what are you what are you trying to get here? Like, what's the point? So to channel my Shauna energy, we continued in the conversation, and then right as he asked me, he was asking me something or like trying to bring me in. Now he wanted my advice or expertise, and I was like, so sorry, I actually have to run. I'm going to be late for my next engagement. It was so great chatting though, and then I left. And it was one of those moments where it was like, wow, me 5 years ago, me just entering this career, me just getting into the industry, she would not have had the, kind of gutsy behavior, as one of my clients says, to stand that ground and kind of hold that position and be like, no, you clearly demonstrated that you did not value my contribution to the conversation, to the environment to begin with. And now you want my advice and expertise because it's convenient, because you've decided that you want me involved. This was a conversation I was already in. You were the one coming in. So yeah, I think that would be one of those scenarios. And then there have been, many more the common things. I've dealt with quite a bit of ageism, a fair share of, subversive sexism throughout the journey. But I think, those are stories that we've all heard before. And for me, my focus has always been on reminding myself of what I like to call the receipts. And there are a bunch of different, terms that you can use, brag book, your resume, your track record, whatever you want to call it. But I always like to root myself in that in the moment and say, listen, if you're trying to make me feel small or underqualified or less than, I'm in this room too. right? So obviously there's a reason that I'm here, that I'm qualified to be here, whether that's personal and, or it's professional. There are always receipts and facts to back that up. So just kind of, reminding yourself of that and standing on those is what I try to root myself in.
And do you find that that specific experiences motivates you to lift others up going through through something similar?
Definitely. Definitely. I have always been a very headstrong, very, very hard to stop individual. When I set my mind to something, then it's happening. Whether it makes sense or not, whether it's rational or not, it's already written. But I identify that a lot of that comes from the cultivation that was around me, my environment. And a lot of people are not fortunate to have that same, attention and environment in their kind of upbringing. So for me and for the work that we're doing with the kitchen, it's really looking at how we can cultivate that environment and instill and support those same principles and ideas, regardless of how old you are, regardless of what it is you are building or working towards, but showing you that yes, you can lean into that energy, and you do have receipts, you got facts to back it up. So how can we use those to support you when there are going to be more than enough people and environments in the world trying to tear you down?
Definitely. What safety resources, spaces, or tools have most impacted your healing journey?
Ooh, that's a fantastic question. I I was saying this on a call a couple weeks ago that this year I've been really big on leaning into vulnerability. And I think in doing that, I'm the eldest daughter. I'm the oldest girl. And so vulnerability and the idea of like anybody taking care of and or supporting me has been a very like, we don't even think about that as a possibility. I am the one who takes care of. So because of that, I have fantastic people around me who are always willing to support, but I haven't let them. And so I think for me, it's been almost allowing myself to really sit in the safe space that I have been surrounded by, as opposed to just, kind of keeping those walls up. So that I would say would be one of them. And then I have never been a super aggressive journaler, but I love a video diary. So if, I don't know how many of your listeners are, there's always so much floating around about like journal and have your perfect like 5 a.m. morning routine where you do all the things with all the supplements and, the birds are chirping. And I'm not that person. First of all, I'm not a morning person. Second of all, not a journaler. But when I do need to kind of get my feelings out and really just kind of hold space for myself, I just flip on my camera. It's literally sometimes just my phone, and I'll just like word vomit, just all the things. And sometimes it's, the equivalent of like that email that you want to type to the person, but you can never send. It's that type of idea. And then I'll upload it and, put it in the folder for later to look back on, or I delete it now that it's out of my system. But that has been really helpful as well.
What was the first step from feeling silence to finding your voice, and how did that change your life?
Ooh, you know, I don't, it's very interesting because I feel that most stories that I've heard when there is an instance of, being silenced, it's usually external. It's usually, I was silenced by my environment, by my parents, by, I'm the youngest child, I wasn't heard at work, whatever the case may be. But for me, I was very fortunate to have quite the opposite, actually. Um, I was always encouraged to speak up, especially at home. And then as that transitioned to work, my very first job was for myself. I started my own company. So there was nobody to silence me really. But what's interesting in hindsight is that I feel like on some level I almost silenced myself, because it again goes back to that kind of imposter syndrome situation of, oh, okay, like, am I qualified? Am I qualified to be having these conversations, to be doing these deals, to be in these rooms, to be at these events? And so on some level, I was like, okay, well, maybe if I just kind of played the part, then we'll be okay. And for me, I am a very commanding personality. I am very loud, not in volume, but in presence. And I know that I've always been that way. So I knew that about myself going in. And so that looked like, wearing colors that would kind of blend in. No loud colors, no patterns, no prints. Very much like I lived in grayscale for the most part. I was always trying to do what I could to be in the background. And I think that was my way of kind of silencing myself, because I didn't really have anything externally that was silencing me. But I was like, okay, we're still going to try and tiptoe and like play anyway. The way that that changed my life is when I realized that that's what I was doing. And that was after a losing the biggest client that I'd had up to that point. I had to part ways, and it was an incredibly emotional and honestly heartbreaking. It felt like a breakup, to be honest, that experience. And I kind of looked around and I was like, just kind of taking stock of where I was before I started that journey, and then at this point now after the breaking point, if you will. And I was like, wow, I used to be the girl who would wear whatever I wanted. Like, fashion is huge for me. You can very much tell what's going on in my life, how I'm feeling based on how I'm dressed. And so fashion was the easiest kind of thing to look at in terms of what had shifted. And I look back and I was like, I was the one who used to wear, like, I used to buy things knowing that everybody around me would think they were ugly. Like, that everybody around me would be like, why are you wearing that? But I loved it. I had this pair of jeans that looked like I had literally taken them off of a scarecrow, and they were like my favorite pair of jeans for a while. So I looked back and I was like, that's how I used to dress. That's how I used to move. That's what I used to embody before. And then if you look back at these like years, of style, it's really me all in black, and very like muted accessories, very low profile, like I'm in sunglasses, like very much looked like I was trying to go undercover. And I've never been somebody who was hiding from things. So I was like, that doesn't make sense, that doesn't match. And I was like, okay, well, clearly there's something deeper there. So I started to unpack that a little bit. And I was like, okay, we don't have to be in this place anymore. Let's do something different. So I shifted entirely. And now, like, if look at any of my pages, you'll see I genuinely wear whatever I want, whenever I want. And I've been focused on like just wear the dress. So, which is this kind of idea that tomorrow is not promised. So women are so stuck on like, oh, I'm going to save the shoes for this special day. I'm going to save that dress for this special occasion. And it's like, no, just wear whatever you want, whenever you want, because you don't know if you're going to make it to that special occasion, as morbid as that sounds. So it's been a great kind of recentering for me, and coming back home of like, okay, what used to make me happy? Like, weird combinations and playing with textures and really experimenting with my style and shapes and things like that. And that has been such an inward expression that has then manifested into, how I'm showing up day to day. So now I really, really don't care, honestly. Full stop, fundamentally, exactly, across the board. And I really think that is the secret, and it's such a superpower. The freedom that comes with genuinely not caring is unmatched.
Definitely. I mean, look at me. I feel comfortable, I feel warm, I feel loved. Because 5 years ago, I wouldn't even dare showing up, makeup on, hair perfect, because I wanted everything to be perfect. But when you learn how to love yourself, you show up just the way you are, because life happens. We are all business women. We are all, some of us are moms, some of us are women and wives and friends, and we all, I don't know, but it's exhausting to fit in and to be perfect all the time. I don't know, it's not working for me. So it's better to
Yeah,
just show up as yourself. Yes.
absolutely. Absolutely.
What's one powerful lesson you've learned about self-worth, and how do you carry it with you as you continue to grow and inspire others?
One powerful lesson that I've learned about self-worth. I think that would have to go back, honestly, to I don't even know how early in my childhood, but my mom always used to say that you can't expect anybody else to love you unless you love yourself first. And I think, I mean, that in and of itself is a full sentence. But I think that is really such a guiding light and such a great place to start with, if you are working through reconnecting with your self-worth, or getting clearer on your self-worth, regardless of, how that manifests. I think you really have to feel it and see it first before you can expect the rest of the world to. So yeah, I think that would be one. And then I carry it through. Honestly, it's remembering that phrase, repeating that in some way, shape, or form to myself, probably multiple times a day at this point in my life. Um, but just a reminder of, you've got to see it first. You've got to see it first in order for you to expect anybody else to. And beyond that, it doesn't matter if anybody else sees it as long as you do. And marrying the two is where the magic happens.
Definitely. If you could tell your 17-year-old self one thing, what would it be and why?
It would be nobody has it all figured out. Yes, seriously, even them. Um, and why? Because my friends and I were talking about this the other day, actually, and we were like, what's actually insane? We're really all just trying to figure it out. The most successful people that you look up to, the ones that have been on the magazine covers, the ones that, you've heard your parents or your friends or whoever, your colleagues talking about for years and years and years, they're still just trying to figure it out too. And I think that is something that you really, when you're younger, you really think that you get to this certain age, you get to this point in life, you reach this milestone, and it's suddenly like everything all falls into place. And you're like, okay, the test was I just had to make it to 18. And when I made it to 18, everything was like gates opening up. Ah, and like, everything makes sense now. And I've been so fortunate to be surrounded by such incredible people and have many conversations with much more successful people than me, doing just such incredible things. And there are a few constants, but one of them is that they're like, yeah, no, we don't have it figured out either. It was, what landed me here was a mix of hard work. It was a mix of a little bit of delusion in, the belief that it would work out, even if it didn't seem to make sense at the time. And the audacity to keep going. That was what got us here. It wasn't this, magic age. It wasn't this magic birthday. It wasn't this job that I got that just boom, 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 and like we're good. It's that combination. It's so much of a melting pot of factors. And I think that's what she was still holding on to. At 17, she was still holding on to hope that she'd reach a certain age and figure things out. And sadly, that is not the case. There is no button you press, no elevator floor where you're like, okay, you get to the top and it's like, here's the answer for the rest of my life. So yeah, nobody has it all figured out. Yeah, not even a person that you're thinking of when I say this and you're like, surely they do. They don't either, I promise.
And that actually makes it so much less if you think about it, less stress. It's like, oh, okay. There is
Yeah,
no destination to finish off and be in a certain
right.
age or some. I am still going, figuring it out. This podcast, I just started, and like you say, a little bit delusional because I don't know if anyone else there could interview 100 women or get publish 100 episodes in 6 weeks. I was like, oh, it's a crazy idea, Marie-Louise, but okay, let's just do it. And here I am. I'm like, I thought it would be easier. I thought it would just come. And no, it doesn't just come with a golden spoon and say, okay,
Right.
here we go. You've got it all. No, we all, especially if we are women and we are for trying to find our voice and share it with the world and share our stories. It takes courage. It takes definitely a lot of resilience. I said to my husband, I don't need to go and run around the block to get resilience. These are resilience by itself to just do these things. But just to know that everyone is doing the best that I can. And like you said, no one has it all figured out. We're still figuring things out. And I love, I think when you put your mindset to growth and you're
Yeah.
always eager to grow and learn new things, that is something that will keep you going and moving forward. But when your ego is in front of you and saying, no, I know it all, I don't care, I know it all, then you're going to stay stuck in that same space because growth can't take place when your ego is in there. Not at all.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. That's what is I'm gonna completely butcher this quote, but it's one of the ones that I, kind of cycle through my mental rotation. But the idea is that growth is what comes after the death of your ego. Something like that. I'll have to find it and share the actual one because that definitely wasn't it, but that's the idea. And it's so true because uh, you can't reach out for help authentically. You can't ask these questions. You can't have these authentic connections unless you are in a place where you're like, no, I don't know anything. I don't know anything. And I say this all the time because there is a list of things that I know to be true. I know to be 100% fact. There are a list of skills that I know I have 100%, and I've got my receipts to prove them. But outside of that, I'm like, no, I don't know anything. And even within that realm, like brand building is very much my thing. I have people that I respect so highly in the industry, and I will go to them and say, listen, here's what I'm thinking. But at the end of the day, what do I know? I am coming to you because I think that you have valuable insight. And here's my question, here's my challenge. Now I'm going to shut up. Tell me that I'm completely wrong, or tell me what you think. Tell me that, I mean, on the off chance, tell me that, we should run with this and you love it. But I want to hear your authentic response and your feedback and your thoughts. And that has nothing to do with my ego. I was just on a call with somebody who's become a really, really good friend. And I was telling her about an idea and, something I was doing in my business. And she was like, okay, well, do you want my like friendly support or do you want my honest thoughts? And I was like, I appreciate the friendly support, but like, I know that's where this is coming from. Give me the truth. And she then proceeded to basically tear me apart for like 15, 20 minutes. And I was like, thank you. I'm a little hurt. I'm gonna need a minute, but thank you. Because I would so much rather that. And my people know that I may be silent. I may not have anything to say. I may be a little shocked, but I would always rather you be honest with me. If I trust you and value your opinion enough to go to you and say, hey, here's what I'm doing, then I'm coming to you and saying, here's what I'm doing, tear this apart. And if it can survive being torn apart, then I know it's a really good idea and we got to run with that. And if it doesn't, then it probably wasn't that good to begin with.
Definitely. Kaya, how do you define thriving today, and what mindset shifts or practices help you embrace that definition?
I define thriving by knowing that I am working and or operating in alignment with my Ikigai. And I'm going to dive into what that means really quickly, just in case, your listeners are not familiar. But Ikigai is the intersection of what you're passionate about, what you're good at. There's one more category, and what you can get paid to do. And I had different ideas. Like, I thought I understood that. And I thought I was working in alignment with it until a couple weeks ago. And I had a conversation with my business coach. And I mean, he's really my life coach at this point. But I was talking to him and I was like, yeah, how do you navigate this and this and this? And he's like, oh, well, it's really just your Ikigai. And I was like, I was literally standing in the middle of the grocery store with like my mouth agape as I'm on the phone with him. And I'm like, what did you just say to me? I was like, no exaggeration, that just changed my life. And he was like, he just kind of chuckled. And I was like, no, I'm so serious. Like, I actually need to go so I can just like think and sit in silence for the next half hour because I don't know how to process. So now the way that I define thriving is, yes, when you're operating in alignment with your Ikigai and truly working in your purpose, whether that is working as in your 9 to 5 with paying your bills, or that's just your day-to-day operation. I've been really, really big this year on removing anything that has any friction attached to it. And that's not to say that life is easy or that it's supposed to be easy. Obviously, it wouldn't be life if it was. But there are certain scenarios where, you're planning this thing, you're trying to do this, and the pieces just fall into place. It's not easy, but they fall into place. Whereas there are other things where you're working and trying to make it happen, and it seems like just at every turn, there is so much resistance, and you don't know where it's coming from, you don't know why, but just like you were supposed to record the podcast episode, and then your power went out, and then as soon as yours came back on, theirs went out, and then suddenly they're not responding to their email, and then now your camera lens is scratched. Like, how did that happen? And all these things that don't make sense. And this year I was like, okay, we're going to take a step back. Anything that has unnecessary friction attached to it is clearly not in alignment with where I'm supposed to be going and what I'm supposed to be doing. So I'm done. I'm removing it entirely. And that had to do with, that included relationships, that included projects, that included, travel, anything in my life that had unnecessary friction attached to it. I was like, nope, not for me. And if it is for me, then it'll come back. But it's clearly not for me right now. Otherwise, if it was, then it would be working out like this. And that is how I define thriving now. And that's what I'm carrying into 2025, is this idea that, everything that's meant for me will find me. And I just have to keep doing what I'm doing, keep working in alignment with my purpose, and we'll be good. It doesn't have to make sense. I don't have to see I don't have to understand what's at the end of the journey. I just need to know what I have to do, the immediate next step. That's it.
I love it. The last question. What made you
Yeah.
decide to be featured on Speak Up Queen? And how does it feel knowing that there's a safe space for women to share their stories and inspire others?
Oh, well, I always love connecting with women in general. But the whole ethos of the kitchen is to lift while you climb. So I love to share my story and share, any tidbits or pieces of advice that I can. And I know how valuable this has been for me on my journey, as women have reached out their hands to help me up. So I always try to pay it back and pay it forward. And I hope that this was valuable for somebody listening. But this is incredible what you've done, what you're building. I'm honored that you had me on, and congratulations, because this is insane.
Oh, Kaya. Yeah, it's been hard work, but like you said, when you have this passion in your heart, it's not work. It's actually, you get energy from somewhere, because I love hearing stories of all different ages, races, cultures. It's just so amazing for women to come together in one place and share their experiences, because we are all brought up differently. We are all, and that's just, I love it. I just, like you said, if you have this passion in you, it will happen. So yeah,
Yes.
Kaya, thank you so much for sharing your powerful and inspiring story with us today. Your journey reminds us of the strength and courage it takes to heal, grow, and thrive. So, to everyone tuning in, remember your voice and story have the power to inspire and create change. If today's episode resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share with someone who needs this message. Until next time, Queens, keep speaking up and embracing your power.